around 14 years of IT experience. I started my career with Microsoft Business Intelligence, and later I got an opportunity to work for Microsoft. For 8 years, I worked for them, and there I have started working for Azure Data Engineering Services as well as Microsoft Power BI. So this is about briefly, and even currently I'm working for one of the Indian-based company. Yeah, please. So we are going to start talking about Azure Data Engineering. What are the responsibilities of a data engineer? What are the responsibilities of Azure Data Engineer that we are going to talk as part of a demo? So when you see this here, you can understand there is a data. What is the purpose of this data? What is the purpose of the data here is that we are going to see. As a data engineer, we are always going to deal with the data. Always we are going to deal with the data. What is the purpose of this data? What we are going to do with the data? Let's say when you take any business in the market, you may take a business from like you may take Amazon business or any business. If you take Amazon or Flipkart, like this, if you take any business, when they run the business, if they wanted to grow in the business, first they need to understand what is happening in the business. If they wanted to expand their business across the different products or across the different locations, then first they need to understand how exactly it is increasing. Which product is getting more sales? Which product is getting less sales? If you understand that, then you can go for expanding. Okay. So let's say, for example, you are doing your design one product A. If you wanted to go and expand the number of products, that means if you wanted to increase the number of products for generation, then you need to understand the sales of this business, the sales of the product A. Based on the sales, if there is a more demand, then you can go for generating more products. Otherwise, there is no use of creating products, right? So how exactly we know that? And basically reporting team is going to give the answer which product is giving more sales and which product is giving less sales. But who will give the data to the reporting team? Who will give the data to the reporting team here is data engineers. Azure data engineers are responsible, or data engineers are responsible to give the data to the reporting team. So that means we are going to provide the data to the reporting team, as well as we are going to give this data to the machine learning team or data scientist team. For all the different people, we are going to give a data. So that is the main role for us as data engineer. We are going to bring the data from the different places, and we are going to save the data. We will give this data to the reporting team or different downstream systems. Okay, so we need to understand first the data. How exactly the data is there? That I'm going to take you through. Basically, there are three different types of data in the market. There are three different types of data. There are three different types of data in the market. One is structured data, semi-structured data, and unstructured data. Semi-structured data, unstructured data. Okay, so varieties of the data is there in the market. So if your data source is having structured data, then you have to process the structured data. If your data source is having semi-structured data, then we need to process semi-structured data. If you're having unstructured data, then we have to process unstructured data also. Okay, so from where exactly you're going to get this structured data is, if you take any business in the market, you are going to have some applications. You're going to have some applications to run the business. If you want to run the business, we need to have applications. Let's say, for example, I wanted to order a product in the Amazon. Then we are going to use the Amazon applications. I wanted to transfer amount from one account to another account. If you're having ICICI Bank account, you can use iMobile app or net banking. You can use to transfer the amount. So that means you're making a transaction. How data is getting generated? How data is getting generated is based on the business applications. We are going to generate the data. Okay, so applications generates the data, and those data is going to be stored in the storage called, I wanted to say at this point of time, OLTP system, online transactional processing system. This online transactional processing system is going to collect the data from the application and stores the data into their storages. Whatever the storage they're having, they're going to keep the data in the storage. So that may be Oracle database, that may be DB2 database, that may be SQL Server, anything it is. I wanted to say OLTP system, online transactional processing system. So this system is specifically designed for running of your business. Okay, so we are not going to be part of designing this particular area. We are going to be part of reading data from the OLTP system. Our journey is going to start from this particular area. Our journey is going to start from reading data from the OLTP system. So how exactly we can read it? That we are going to say. But I wanted to say here, you will be having structured data, you will be having semi-structured data, and you're also going to have unstructured data. Okay, so semi-structured data is going to be like what we can say, it is a light-weighted data. How exactly the structure and semi-structured and unstructured, I'll take you through now. Just observe here, I'm having the types of the data as expected, structured data, semi-structured data, and unstructured data. So we'll get all this material, guys, so you don't need to write anything. Okay, so whatever I'm showing, all the material you're going to get it. So I have three varieties of the data. When you see this grid, you can feel this is a table. Everyone can feel that. Is that table or not? And this is also is a table. Okay, so here, when I say unit price, that is going to take the numbers. So data types are bound to the columns. So specific data types will be there, and we can keep the data in the form of rows and columns. When you have a tabular data, you're going to be, this data is going to be represented in the form of rows and columns. So there is a fixed number of columns. In a structured data, they're going to have a fixed number of columns. The number of columns are not going to increase. The number of columns are not going to decrease. The example for this is a SQL Server, on-prem SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, PostgreSQL, and so on. So in order to store the same structured data in the cloud platform, especially from Microsoft Azure, I'm taking, you can take Azure SQL database and Synapse SQL to store the structured data. Okay, so we can write a SQL standard here. SQL code you can write in order to read the data from the tabular format. So this is a structured data, and even CSV files also is going to have a structured data because you'll be having rows and columns. The only difference is this is a file system and this is a database. So this is about the structured data. So structured data is going to have in the form of tabular format, fixed number of columns and varying number of rows. Rows will increase or decrease, but number of columns are going to be fixed. If your business requirement demands to increase the number of columns for fee records and decrease the number of columns for fee records, then your structured data is not going to be suitable. Okay, so these databases are not going to be suitable in order to store varying structured data. If that is the case, then you can go for another kind of thing, that is we are having semi-structured data here. So semi-structured data, basically mostly we are going to use like JSON files, XML files, This are all going to be semi-structured data. It's a file systems only. They're going to be like a file systems. So each record has a variable number of properties. You can see here I have a table called employees is the name of the table. I have a one record. This is one record here. And this is another record. If you clearly observe here, ID is 101, name is Bhaskar, and salary is 5,000. That means 3 columns are there in the first record. But when you go to the second record, in the second record, we're having 4 columns. So that means number of columns are not fixed. If it is a structured data, you're going to have a fixed number of columns, whereas in the semi-structure, you're going to have a varying number of columns. So you can have the columns however you want. Okay, so flexibility is more when you compare with structure. Okay, so market is even having a lot of data with semi-structure. So no fixed schema, flexible structure. So here we are going to have a NoSQL kind of data, that is like not only SQL. NoSQL means not only SQL kind of data we are going to have. So here the data is arranged in the form of key and value. Key and value pair, it is arranged. Okay, so we are going to come across this kind of requirement. How exactly we are going to handle it? So example for this is MongoDB, Neo4j, Radius. And from Microsoft Azure, we have a table store and Cosmos DB for example for semi-structured data. And we're also going to process unstructured data. We're also going to process the unstructured data. So unstructured data is there in the market. So that will be coming from like text files and documents. Okay, so servers, websites, and application logs. These are all not going to have the column names. Let's say, for example, one of the company is selling mobile. When you try to take a mobile, 100% you are going to see the reviews of the mobile. How the reviews are there. If the reviews are perfect, if you are satisfied with few of the reviews, then you can go for that. So reviews is there. Reviews is going to be there with the unstructured data. Reviews is going to be unstructured data, no structure. And you're sending an email to your manager. Email is not going to have a number of columns. It's not going to have a structure. It's a plain text. So this kind of data also is required to process it. How we can process, we are going to see one of the examples so that you can understand how we can process unstructured data. But basically machine learning teams will work on this kind of things, and data scientist teams, and you can you have to use the different kind of technologies in order to process it. So here my intention is we have a different ways to generate the data. Images, videos, audios, emails, social media data, all those things we can say it is a unstructured data. Okay, so as a data engineer, as I said, we are going to handle all these kind of activities. Now, you are going to get the recorded guess. So I'll give the answers for all the questions. So just keep in the chat box if you have any question. I'll take a questions at the end of the session. Okay, so now why we need to go for cloud? Why don't we do without cloud? We have a data, right? Before the cloud platform in the market, we have a data in the market. Okay, so for decades we have a data in the market. We process the data without cloud services. Okay, without cloud services, we process the data and we deliver the reports to the business. Why we need to come out of the existed platform? We have already existed platform, or we can say, I wanted to say, traditional platform we are having it. We are having traditional platform. So traditional platform, maybe you're having something like I have a SSIS project, or I have an Informatica project, or I have a Hadoop project. It's all depends. Okay, so depends on your requirement, you can have it. We can use these services or tools in order to provide the solution for your business data, to take the business decisions. Okay, to save the data, we can use SQL Server integration services from the Microsoft, and you can use the Informatica Power Center from Informatica, and you can use the Hadoop also in order to provide the solution for your big data. These two are not for big data, but Hadoop is designed for big data processing. Okay, so when you're working, there are two different types of problems you're going to face. One is a data storage. There are two problems. And one is data storage. So data storage is a big problem for us. Because if you have a terabytes of the data, then it's very difficult to store in your premises. And processing, let's say data processing. So data processing is also a problem. These two are the problems, and we are going to provide the solution for these two problems with Microsoft Azure. Okay, so with cloud, we are going to provide the solution. Now, I wanted to say why we need to go for cloud platform. Forget about Azure or anything. So we have a different kind of cloud providers in the market. So I'll come back to this particular area to talk specific to our requirement. So at this point of time, let's see why we need to go for Azure. I wanted to create one e-commerce business application. I wanted to run the business. I'm the startup. I wanted to start one small startup company. If I wanted to start, then I need to have some infrastructure, right? Without infrastructure, I cannot do it. But I have an idea to start the business. So example, I wanted to start the restaurant. If I wanted to start the restaurant, then you need to have a building. You need to have a infrastructure to set up, and manpower is required to set up everything. And so that will take some time, right? To set up it is going to take some time. So that means if I wanted to start a restaurant, you have to do initial investment. Okay, before opening your restaurant, you have to invest something. Then only you can go for running of the business. In the same way, if you want to start e-commerce business application or e-commerce business, then definitely you need to plan what is required to start this business. So simple, in order to start any business without application, you cannot run the business in the current market. If you take any business, Amazon or Flipkart, or there are many things. Okay, so Zomato is there, and Uber is there, Ola is there. They have some application to run the business. In the same way, to start your business, you need to have some application. If you don't have application, then you cannot run the business. So what you're thinking is, I wanted to have one business application to launch my business in the market. For that, what we require is, in order to set up the application, we need to have the server. Let's say, for example, if I wanted to run some application, 100% we require compute power. Okay, so compute means it is a servers. So servers are required in order to have all the setup. Without servers, you cannot do anything. Your laptop i3 or i7, these are all the processors, right? So these are all the servers only. So servers are required in order to start your business. And when the application is taking some transactions, 100% you have to store those transaction data. When you order a product, the order details are going to be stored somewhere in the business system. So we require storages. Storages are required. That may be a database, that may be a file system, that may be anything. I wanted to say at the higher level, storages is required. If you don't have the storage, then you cannot store the data. So to set up the servers, to have this storages, to set up all this environment, definitely we require team members, right? Infra team is required to set up it. So manpower is required. And once you have all these things, then 100% is we have to provide the security for your servers. You have to provide the security for your storages, for your building, physical security and cyber security. All those things are required. So security is essential for any business. Okay, it's very, very important for every business in the market. So these are all required. These are all minimum things that we require to start a business. So if I have this, then I can ask the team to start doing the development of the application. Otherwise, I cannot do it. So in order to do all these things, definitely you have to spend some amount. You have to buy the servers. You have to buy the storages. All those things are required. So in order to do this, you have to buy, and the challenges for this is you have to invest. You have to do initial investment. Before starting the business, you have to invest it. Okay, so after 6 months, you may start the business. But for this 6 months, you have to bear everything. You have to invest for the 6 months. So high setup cost. In order to set up this, the high cost it is going to be there. Because you wanted to set up in your premises. Okay, I'm not talking about the cloud. I'm talking about if you have all this stuff inside your premises, what are the challenges that you're having? I just wanted to take you through. And high setup cost is required. At the same time, if at all if the business is succeeded, many businesses are succeeded in the market. Okay, so Flipkart, even Google, there are many people are succeeded. Once upon a time, they were all are startup companies only. So if there is a success, definitely you have to increase the manpower. You have to increase the servers. You have to increase the storage. Let's say, for example, your system is 500 TB, your laptop size, you just imagine. Okay, if 500 TB is completed, 500 GB of TB, anything, if this size is completed, again you have to increase size, right? You have to buy the size. You just imagine you have a 8 GB RAM. You wanted to increase the RAM. You have to buy it. Otherwise, you cannot do it. So if your business is getting increased, then if the business is succeeded, you have to increase everything here. So that means more resources are required if the business is succeeded. So these are all the challenges. And one fine day, what you wanted to do is you consulted one of the Azure solution architect. If I go with my premises, I have a problem. The problem is investment, high investment cost it is, and at the same time, I need to have a more resources. Resources means in the form of servers, storages, manpower, everything comes under the resources. Is need to increase more, but I don't have the budget. I don't have the budget to spend a lot of amount for this. So for this one, market is identified a lot of gap here. So there are many people came into the market. Why don't we provide the infrastructure to the customers? Why don't we provide my server to them? Why don't we give our databases to customers? So this is the place that we are having in the market. So let's say, for example, if you consulted one of the solution architect, so he is having more experience and he is given some explanation about your on-premise and cloud. What happens if you go to the cloud and what happens if you go to the on-prem? So the challenges that I'm just going to take you through here. Once you understand this, then you can decide whether you need to go with the cloud platform or on-prem. So on-prem means it is your home. Whatever is there, let's say, for example, to stay in Hyderabad, do I need to build a house? I don't need to build a house. If I wanted to stay for 1 year in Hyderabad, I don't need to build a house. I don't need to have a own house. I can stay in the hostel. I can take a rent. Anything that you can do it. Once your work is completed, then you can leave from here. You're getting my point, right? So there are many benefits are there if you go with the cloud. This is an on-prem and this is a cloud. The benefits of the cloud computing, I'm just going to show you. So based on that, we are going to decide to go with the Azure or not. Okay, so let's say, for example, here, on-premise and cloud. Huge upfront cost of setup. We require to have a more investment you need to do in order to set up this on-prem, because you have to set up the servers, you have to do everything from your side only. But when you go to the cloud, what you are going to do is you are going to take the services from the cloud. You can take the services from the cloud. Whatever the service you require, same services, whatever I'm using in my premises or whatever the softwares that I need from here, the same thing I can take it from the cloud. So when I go to the cloud, what happens is I don't need to do initial investment. I don't need to do any single NP for setting up environment. But here, if I wanted to have one, let's say for example, I need Oracle database. Let's say for example here, I need one Oracle database. And I need SQL Server database. I need a SQL Server DB also. So to have this, not only this, I wanted to have one application. Let's say I wanted to have Informatica or SSIS. So all this softwares I required. So what I can do is I can set up in my premises. I can set up in my premises. So this one we can say on-prem. Everything is going to be there in your premises. Everything is going to be there in your premises. Because of that reason, you're saying on-prem. And you have to take the license from the Oracle. You have to take the license from the SQL Server and Informatica before, like when you're taking license means you paid the amount. You paid the amount for 1 year or depends on your requirement, you paid it. If I don't use this SQL Server for 6 months, then you're wasting the license cost, right? Definitely it is going to be wasted. And here also the same thing. Before utilizing, you have to take the license. And not only this, you need to have an operating system license. All the softwares you have to set up and you need to have an infrastructure. For this one, you just imagine 100 systems are required. If I need 100 systems, you need to buy first 100 systems. That is the minimum requirement to just imagine. So later you may increase the number of systems. So you have to buy your 100 systems. That means you have to invest some amount on this. If I do the same thing in the Microsoft Azure or any cloud platform without paying anything, at least for a month, we don't require to pay anything. So I wanted to say it is cloud. Same thing you can take. Same Oracle server you can take. Same SQL server you can take. And same softwares you can install. Okay, so from the cloud, at least we don't require to buy the systems. And we can utilize the resources or infrastructure of the cloud, and we can utilize them. And once the application is ready, you can start your business. So we don't require to do the investment. If you go here, that is what we are having. I'm having here pay as you go model. Pay as you go model means if I use for 1 hour, you can pay for 1 hour. If I use for 1 hour, you can pay for 1 hour. But here, if you use it or if you don't use, you have to pay. So that is the problem here. So a lot of difference you can see in the cost. No upfront cost. Like not required to increase the manpower here. Because If I have 100 masons can be interconnected. You don't require to set up everything. Okay, so OS also is going to be set up behind the scene. You can take all the feasibilities from the cloud platform. And if I have some updates in the softwares, then I don't need to take care if it is a cloud, but in the on-prem, you have to take care from your side. So no automatic updates are available in the on-prem. That means, let's say for example, your SQL Server 2017 is there. Just imagine 2017 user SQL Server. If you want to upgrade to SQL Server 2022, then it's not possible directly. If I wanted to increase my version from lower version to higher version, you cannot do it directly. You have to upgrade the software from your side. So as an infra team is going to take care about it if it is a on-prem. But when it comes to the Microsoft or when it comes to the cloud platform, automatically they're going to be upgraded. Okay, so since we are talking about Microsoft Azure, I'm just going to take the term when I talked about it. So Microsoft Azure is going to take care software updates automatically. So automatic software updates are available. We don't require to do anything from our side. And if I wanted to upgrade, let's say for example, I wanted to increase the compute. Number of systems. Why we need to increase the compute? Like most of you people are aware of Big Billion Day, right? From the Amazon or Flipkart. So at some point of time, they used to give a lot of offers. So then there will be more demand on the server. So there are more chances to crash the server also. So to balance the server, we need to increase the resources. So in order to do that, we have to plan if it is an on-prem from the beginning, before or prior 1 month, we need to plan. But when it comes to here, we have a more flexibility to increase the compute and to decrease the compute. In my current project, in one of the situations, I came across for the database, I increased the number of DTUs whenever it is required, and I decrease the number of DTUs whenever it is not required for better cost. So end of the day, we need to save the cost. We need to save the money of the customer. Then if customer is happy, then we can have a project. So how exactly we can do it, that I experienced, that I'm going to take you through practically. So lack of flexibility to update in the on-prem, whereas high flexibility to upgrade with few clicks. We don't require to take a lot of time. We don't require to depend on someone else to increase. But here, a lot of approvals, a lot of manpower, a lot of things are required. But here, with just a few clicks, if you have a privilege to increase the compute, with a few clicks, we can set up it. And require dedicated resources. When you go for on-prem, we need to have a dedicated resource to set up. But here, we don't require. No staff required to maintain the data center, because this will be taken care by cloud vendors. And data cannot be accessed from the remote. If you want to access this from the remote, it is not possible. Whereas your cloud services can be accessed from the remotely also. So wherever you are, you can work. The only thing is you need to have an internet. If you have an internet, then you can start working on it. So when you explain the difference, if you go with the on-prem, these are all the challenges. When you go for the cloud, these are all the benefits. If I say, then definitely customer is going to think about to move cloud platform. So at the finally, you are ready to go to the cloud. You're ready to go to the cloud. So here we are going to take the Microsoft Azure as a reference. So once you accepted, then first you need to know what is this Azure, right? We need to understand what is Microsoft Azure. Whatever we discussed, the same thing is there here. You can see. Azure is a cloud computing service created by Microsoft. Basically, Microsoft is branding the services in two different brands. Microsoft Cloud is having two different brandings. They're branding the services. Okay, let me keep like this. So two different brandings they're doing. One is Azure. Another one is Office 365. We're having two different set of brandings. So we are going to work with this one. We are not going to work with this. This is not for us. This is not for developers. This is for the users and this is for developers. Okay, so in the Azure itself, we have a varieties of the services that we are going to see how exactly it is going to be there. So Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing service created by Microsoft, where users can create a servers, users can create a storage systems, databases, etc. So we are going to see them. Practically, we are going to see how exactly we are going to handle it. How we can extract this, how we can take the services. If I wanted to take the services from the cloud, the same services, if I wanted to take it, the process of taking the service from here, you are a business user, I wanted to take the service. You are the user or developer. You wanted to take the service from here. So if you want to take the service, then we need to connect to this place, right? The process of taking the services from the cloud platform, that we can call it as cloud computing. We can call it as a cloud computing. We don't require anything. We require only operating system, and if you have a local system and network, if you have a browser, then you can connect to the cloud platform. You can access all the services from here. Okay, so there are different varieties of the services are available in the market. From the Microsoft, we are having the varieties of the services. So here we have seen why we need to move to the cloud platform. Why we need to move to the cloud platform, we have seen. Now, specific to the Azure Data Engineer, I wanted to talk. So this is for in general. Okay, if I wanted to start any business, if I wanted to start the business as I discussed here, then you can go for this. This is related to business application. Now I wanted to take you through what you are going to do as part of the data engineering. Let's say, for example, there are so many migration projects that are available in the market. There are many migration projects in the market. To migrate from on-prem to cloud. So for example, I have a SSIS project. and I wanted to convert this into cloud project. I wanted to move my entire infrastructure. I wanted to move my entire infrastructure to the cloud. And I have an Informatica project. So like this, there are many projects. Even this also I wanted to move to the cloud. Let's say it is a cloud project. I'm just saying cloud project, but I'm going to talk more in detail how we can migrate from one project to another project. Is that just by doing the clicks, or do we need to do anything to come into the cloud? That I'm going to talk. And if I have a Hadoop project, then even Hadoop project also I wanted to migrate into the cloud. So this cloud is, in this particular case, we are going to take Microsoft Azure. From these are all the on-prem projects. I wanted to migrate all these projects. These are all the ETL projects only. These are all ETL projects. What you are going to do as a, previously we used to call them as ETL developers. Now we are calling them as data engineers. ETL developers and data engineers, both are same only. Okay, so here I wanted to say ETL developers, we are going to call them, and when it comes to here, we are going to call them as data engineers. Even Hadoop developers also will be called as data engineers only. Okay. This was traditional term, traditional way of calling, but now people are called as data engineers. So since we are working in the Azure, we are calling them as Azure Data Engineers. We have a GCP Data Engineers, we have a ADLS Data Engineers, like that. Okay, so what are the services that we are going to cover as part of this? As part of this, what services we are going to cover? The majority of the services. In order to work as a data engineer, we have to know our work with the following services. One is storage accounts. So here we can have a Blob storage account and Azure Data Lake Storage Center. These two accounts we are going to have, we are going to come across them. And the second is Azure SQL Server to store the data. And we are going to say Azure Data Factory. This is very, very important for us. So this is the main service that we are going to use as part of throughout this Azure Data Engineering and Azure Databricks. This is also is very, very important when you're working as a Azure Data Engineer. So do not say, I don't know Databricks. You have to work with the Databricks also. And Azure Key Vault, we are going to talk about it. This is also very important. Without asking a question about this, we never ever finish an interview in many places. And Azure Logic Apps I'm going to touch. This is also important because we have to send an alert mails once the activities are completed. So we're also going to touch this Azure Logic Apps. We are not going to work as an Azure Logic App developer, but to get the alerts, we are going to use that. And how we are going to integrate all of them, we are going to see. So these are all the main services that we are going to come. And as part of this, I just wanted to give Azure Synapse basics. This is ADF plus ADB. That means Azure Data Factory plus Azure Databricks is going to be both together. We can say it is Azure Synapse. So if you know these two services, then 50% of the Synapse is already known. I'll give the basics of Microsoft Fabric. The basics only I'm going to give. Because again, if you know this ADF and ADB, working with Microsoft Fabric is simple. These two are additional out of the content. I'm going to talk about this so that you can have some idea. If they ask any interviewer, you can say, I got updated with these things. If I get an opportunity to work with these services, yes, I'm ready to work. So that you can, it will be easy. And prerequisites. What are the prerequisites we need? Azure Data Engineering. What are the prerequisites? SQL basics are required. SQL basics, where minimum things, select statement and functions, predefined functions, joins, CTs, inline views, temp tables. Okay, and DDL is also important. Data definition language, how we can create a table. The reason is when we go for Spark SQL in the Azure Databricks, then you can feel we need to have some knowledge on the DDL also. Because we are going to create a tables in the Spark SQL. So SQL basics is going to be covered, all these things, and Python basics. Okay, so Python basics are required, like data types and collections, conditions, and loops. Again, here also functions. These are all more enough. Okay, so in order to work with the Databricks, you need to know about this Python basics. Python is like anything. We don't need all the Python. Whatever is required to handle our data activities, for that only we require these things. These are all more enough. And these prerequisites, I'm going to take you through the sessions. So you don't need to take a training from outside. I'll take you through the basics of SQL and basics of the Python. Whatever is required for data engineering or whatever is required for a Databricks, that I'm going to take you through. And without asking a question about these two areas, we cannot finish an interview for Azure Data Engineering role. So these two are purely coding, 100% coding. 100% coding. And whereas your data factory is 100% no coding. It's a code-free ETL service. It's a code-free ETL service, but in the interview, they're going to ask you to all these kind of questions because we are going to write the SQL code. We are going to write the PySpark. So as part of Databricks, we are going to use PySpark. Python plus Spark is a PySpark. That we are going to say practically. And most of the DP203 content also is covered, and whatever is not covered, that you have to prepare from your side to write the certification. So DP203 is the certification. And in order to do all these things, someone need to set up, right? Basically, we are going to do the development. We are not going to create the SQL server. We are not going to create any logic apps. Someone will create in real time. But here, we have to create for our practice. We have to do the practice from our side. So we are going to do from our side. So minimum 30% administration activities also we are going to touch. Okay, so this kind of things only if you take a training, then only it is going to be possible. If you directly work in the companies, then you don't even see how they have created, how Azure Key Vault is working, how Azure Logic App is working. That it is not going to be possible to see in the real time. So even in my career, in my entire career, almost more than 6 years I worked for Azure, I didn't create any service. I didn't create any service. I used services. Okay, so we don't need to create in real time. We are going to know how we can use the services, but to practice here, we have to set up everything from our side. And apart from this, I wanted to talk one real-time project. So I can feel how exactly the real-time is going to work and how we can understand the logic and how we can do automation of real-time project from end to end. This project is going to cover most of the services. Okay, so I'm going to use these services, this service, Azure Data Factory, Azure Databricks, Azure Key Vault, Logic App. Okay, except last two services because they are out of the boundary for us basically. But for understanding, I wanted to take you through because for this two, you don't require to take the training from outside. So for that reason, I wanted to give some brief idea about these two services. So in the project, I'm going to touch all the services. So you can feel and you can easily explain about your project, how exactly you have implemented. And everyone is going to create a pipeline, but creating dynamic pipeline is very important. So that I'm going to take you through how we can understand how we can create a dynamic pipelines to avoid too many pipelines. So what are the benefits that you have given for your client if they ask? Then you should be in a position in which place you have provided solution for them. So all those things that I'm going to take you through. This is completely job oriented training. So you have to practice the same way. I'm going to give all these materials. Okay, now much more questions. Yeah, so we have options most of the services will be covered for DP 203. If at all, if there is anything which is not covered, that you need to take care from your side in order to write a certification. But for data engineering, there is a more chances to work with these two services. Some projects will be there only with the data factory and some projects will be there with only Databricks or combination of these two services. So rest of them is common. Azure Key Vault is common, Logic App is common, SQL Server is common. But this will decided depends on your requirement. So this training will be 2 months.